One of the standout moments from the last Democratic debate was the wine cave controversy and the focus that it put on fundraising in this primary, both for Pete Buttigieg, but for other candidates as well. Well, now in the news cycle, we have Q4 numbers. We're gonna dive into those numbers a little bit later on. But for Pete Buttigieg, has he really moved past this wine cave controversy? Well, we're joined now on the show by Ryan Grim, Washington bureau chief for The Intercept, who recently wrote about the wine cave and what people are getting wrong about the controversy for The Intercept. Welcome back to the show.
It's good to be back here.
Good to have you here. So we have a lot that we're gonna be talking about on the show today, but let's start off with the wine cave. And so you wrote up some of what you feel like people were getting wrong in this discussion initially. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I feel like in some important ways, he'll never move past the wine cave. It's because it marks his view of how politics ought to be conducted in 2020 and going forward. And I think that the biggest thing that people got wrong about this, and it's hard to actually gauge that because people got so many things wrong about it. But to me, the biggest one is about access to politicians. Jane Lynch, for instance, went on Twitter and said, "Look, billionaires should have just as much right to participate in the democratic process as the plumber in my bathroom." Okay. Yeah, everybody should agree with that. They should have just as much right, and that right is one vote at the ballot box. We're an equal opportunity country. The difference here is that the billionaire has the opportunity to be with the candidate in the wine cave, pressing his agenda on that candidate, where the plumber does not have access to that wine cave unless a pipe breaks. The waitress doesn't have access to that wine cave unless somebody's $900 a bottle glass of wine needs to be refilled. And often the billionaire will send a lobbyist in there. The billionaire doesn't actually want to be in the wine cave himself. And so you had the spectacle of a lobbyist taking to the pages of the Washington Post to say that, well, not everybody in there were billionaires. Some of us just lobbyists for the healthcare industry. And so, yes, Jane Lynch, if a billionaire wants to cut a check to even the Bernie Sanders campaign, as long as he's not a fossil fuel executive or a registered lobbyist, there's no, it's not obvious that Sanders would say no to that.
Yeah.
Now if the billionaire, happens to be himself personally toxic, then yeah, he'd probably say, you know what, I'm not taking Jeff Bezos's, $2,800. But in general, your run-of-the-mill everyday billionaire is welcome to go on to Act Blue and make whatever legal contribution that they feel like making to whatever candidate they want to make it to. What Sanders and Warren are saying is that you don't have the opportunity to buy access, private access to the candidate, which you will use to press the agenda that you have, and the agenda that you have is a billionaire's agenda.
And the amazing thing, and I'll just say, like I always preface my criticisms of her by saying I love Jane Lynch and everything she's been in. But the saying they should have the same access that a plumber does sort of, to me, implies like that the wine cave finally evens the playing field, as if billionaires didn't already have advantages in literally every other aspect of politics. I mean, their companies are represented by trade groups that have insane access to all of these politicians. They can get on the phone and talk to the candidate individually. I think it was Leon Cooperman, when he was having an issue with Elizabeth Warren a couple months ago, he got brought on TV to talk about it so many times just because he didn't like a candidate. I don't like a ton of candidates. They're not putting me on MSNBC about it. So even without the wine cave, they already have an insanely outsized influence.
Right, but they feel under siege, and I mean, frankly, in a lot of ways, they should, because they are the subject of public opprobrium. People are angry at billionaires, and so they have kind of transformed that feeling into one of marginalization, and they have even been deploying terminology along those lines. In the Washington Post op-ed by the healthcare executive, he referred to quote unquote people of means when he said, yes, it's true that there were people of means at this event. People of means, and he didn't just pull that out of nowhere. Howard Schultz specifically said in a CNN interview, speaking of access to the political process, the guy has really no like obvious right to have a CNN town hall. He just gets one because he's a billionaire.
Yeah.
And in that town hall, he said that he thought it was disparaging and discriminatory to refer to rich people, and even to refer to billionaires, which is just a factual kind of assertion. Like, you have $1 billion, you're a billionaire. They find that to be have come with a stigma. Of course, not among the fellow rich. There, if you're denied your billionaire status, they take umbrage. And he said, therefore, we should be addressed as people of means. And so that language was then appropriated by this healthcare executive in his Washington Post op-ed, who said he himself, in fact, though, was not a millionaire or a billionaire. At The Intercept, we very quickly fact-checked that assertion, because property records are public, found that he's got at least $2 million of equity in his home. His IRAs and his 401ks and his other property are not public record, but just on his primary residence in San Francisco alone, he's a millionaire. And the Washington Post had to put up a kind of awkward correction. He is a millionaire.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.